Buenos días a todos. Welcome everyone to Mexico City. Bienvenidos a la primera.
Welcome to the first high-level meeting of the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation. It is an honor for us to have the gathering of more than 1,500 people belonging to all the sectors interested in the effectiveness of development cooperation. More than 140 countries, more than 80 ministers representing these entities, all of the entities of the United Nations, the Secretary General of the OECD, and at present we would like to ask all of the NGO stakeholders of this global partnership to provide us with some contributions on what they have been working on for the achievement of this meeting. And at present we will have Mr. Tony Tuhan, co-chair of the partnership of civil society organizations. Secondly, we will listen to Senatora Robles Hernandez, designed by the Interparliamentary Commission to present the results on the meeting held yesterday. Thirdly, we will listen to Mr. Paul Carrasco Carpio from the United Nations Regional Area Representative of Local Governments. Fourthly, Betty Maina, General Director of the Association of Manufacturers in Kenya, representative of the private sector. And in fifth place, we will listen to Mr. Alher bin Suleiman from the PEP Fund for International Development as representative of all the foundations. And now I give the floor, first of all, to Mr. Tuhan, and he's got the floor for 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Honorable ministers, excellencies, development partners, CSO colleagues and friends. We thank the government of Mexico for graciously accepting the responsibility to organize the first HLM under the GPEDC, and also supporting the efforts of CSOs, including the organizing of the preparatory CSO forum yesterday. 160 CSOs are here present, affirming their commitment to development effectiveness and their responsibility
la cooperación eficaz al desarrollo, confirmando su responsabilidad para terminar con la pobreza. El mundo enfrenta varios desafíos hoy en día debido a varias crisis globales, crisis políticas, económicas y distintos conflictos. Igualmente encontramos tremendas oportunidades para la acción unificada entre todos los actores que se ven involucrados en el desarrollo. La OSD se reunió en 2011 y 2012 y se reunió debido a la crisis económica y financiera. Y es por eso que hoy damos las buenas noticias de anunciar que el año pasado la OSD nos invita a comprometernos hacia el futuro para aumentar nuestros compromisos. Es de suma urgencia movilizarnos adecuadamente para que los recursos lleguen y podamos abordar los desafíos que enfrentamos con la crisis de los pobres y de los más marginados. Es una responsabilidad que ha existido históricamente en todo el mundo para desarrollar países, y esto es importante para nosotros. nosotros hacia el futuro. El proceso de organizar la Alianza Global para la Cooperación Eficaz al Desarrollo nos lleva a un gran momento. Sin embargo, es importante mencionar que en México todos buscan un compromiso político renovado hacia el desarrollo de la cooperación, una cooperación que sea efectiva y que verdaderamente dé resultados que garanticen que la gente puede disfrutar los derechos humanos y que podamos erradicar la pobreza y terminar con la inequidad y la desigualdad. Este compromiso político renovado presenta una oportunidad para fortalecer la unidad, la solidaridad, la propiedad democrática y las alianzas globales, así como la rendición de cuentas para lograr un desarrollo adecuado. La propiedad de los países es fundamental para reformar la cooperación en todo el mundo. Recordemos también que la propiedad democrática es vital y es una acción primordial que se garantizó en Busan 2011.
Starting with the promotion and fulfillment and defense of human rights by our governments. In particular, the shrinking spaces for CSOs is an important example where CSOs are prevented their responsibility to fulfill their duties to support the people to claim their rights. Inclusive development is premised on the promotion and realization of human rights-based approaches to development that ensures that no one is left behind. Gender equality and empowerment of women have been clear commitments at Busan, but we still need to strive further to improve our work and ensure that monitoring is developed and sustained. We should continue to promote the genuine developmental state premised on clear public responsibility in creating jobs and livelihoods in the context of entrepreneurial development from the grassroots while maintaining or maximizing the positive roles of the private sector role in development. We need clear commitments for private sector accountability and public regulation, and clear additionality in contributions to development. The effort in the HLM to deliver catalytic aid to increase private sector is important in attracting foreign investment, but we should not go overboard. We should not reduce public responsibility to promote and deliver development. As the deadline of the MDGs in 2015 draws near, the post-2015 Sustainable Development Agenda becomes even more urgent, made even more acute with the increasing effects of climate change, such as the historic super typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines. We need to underscore the transformative potential of inclusive, sustainable development and ensure policy coherence and coordination with all development actors, institutions, and governments to deliver transformative goals for sustainable development. Inclusive development partnerships are important for CSOs who need to be fully recognized as development actors in their own right, working to strengthen their own accountability according to the principles, the Istanbul Principles of CSO Development Effectiveness. And also along with our partners, we work to end poverty, inequality, build a sustainable world. Only through inclusive partnerships can we achieve the world we want. Thank you very much.
distinguidos miembros del Presidium, señoras y señores delegados.
Ladies and gentlemen, delegates, it's an honor for me to address you, representing all the parliamentarians of the world. Yesterday we held a meeting that continues with the parliamentarian debate on cooperation that have been held for several years. Yesterday's meetings aims at backing up agreements reached by the states throughout this first high-level meeting of the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation. We also adopted a statement on which we will work in order to accomplish the main purposes. And I want to share the most important aspects. Current needs for cooperation requires higher participation on behalf of parliamentarians. It depends on us very key actions such as mobilization of national resources to improve availability and public access to information on cooperation, to establish transparent systems to manage public finance, and to sensitize the populations of our countries on the need to face global challenges which we will be able to overcome only together. Therefore, it is vital to carry out cooperation, being aware of this fact as well as of the fact of South, Southeast and triangular cooperation as new reference frameworks to generate new, inclusive cooperation organizations. We have decided to contribute to building a better framework on this subject matter. I want to emphasize that the cooperation policy of each country has to be built not only by governments but also by all the stakeholders involved, starting with the parliaments. Likewise, we have emphasized on the importance of strengthening our capabilities in terms of institutions so as to better comply with the budgetary functions and the supervision of the resource assignment. To strengthen transparency mechanisms as well as accountability mechanisms on policies in this subject matter is vital to ensure that aid will get there timely to the people that must receive it. We've also emphasized on the huge contribution for development on behalf of gender-sensitive budgets. And I want to close by saying that it is also vital to have higher participation on behalf of parliamentarians in following up the compliance of Millennium Development Objectives and in defining the new agenda post-2015, in which we will work hardly. Parliamentarians of the world understand that in co-creating an inclusive agenda for development, we have the future of humankind and we will play our part. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all of you. Let me introduce myself. I represent globally, regional and local governments. CLU, worldwide organizations on regional and local governments. Besides, I also represent the Global Partnership members, decision that must be ratified here in Mexico. As members of this Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation, the different local governments commit ourselves and ratify our commitment to strengthening this process and obviously to achieve the compliance of the Busan's Agreement, which was signed by ourselves as well. Friends, for local governments, regional governments, as well as city governments, it is clear that the global development is marked by the post-2015 agenda and by the objectives on sustainable development. This initiative, post-15, establishes the public policy of the whole world. That you all supported in this global
si no ha sido formulada con los ciudadanos y peor aún si no se ejecuta con ellos, es decir, si no se le aplica un enfoque territorial que le permita convertirse en realidad. Si no, será una política pública y una declaratoria más. Para esto es necesario que la Alianza Global para una Cooperación Eficaz promueva lo que nosotros llamamos alianzas globales y alianzas locales, sobre todo las alianzas locales, donde los ciudadanos y ciudadanas sean los gestores y los gobiernos regionales y locales se conviertan en los facilitadores para la ejecución práctica de los programas y proyectos que permitan el cumplimiento de las metas de la Agenda Post-15. Este concepto, para ser más eficaces, requiere de procesos fuertes y claros de descentralización política y autonomía financiera para los territorios, procesos que permitan acercar el poder de decisión a los ciudadanos. Nada lograremos si es que la cooperación no apoya programas y proyectos en el marco de los planes de ordenamiento territorial y de la planificación del desarrollo de los territorios que son cercanos a la gente y que son administrados por los gobiernos locales. Amigos y amigas, todos sabemos que quienes conocen las necesidades del territorio y su problemática en las ciudades, en la periferia y en lo rural son los ciudadanos, acompañados de su nivel de gobierno más cercano. Nuestro llamado a la alianza global es a promover la gran alianza local entre ciudadanos y gobiernos locales, pero también una alianza local que permita la articulación de los gobiernos locales que están en la comunidad urbana y más pequeña, con los gobiernos municipales, con los gobiernos regionales y por supuesto con los gobiernos nacionales. Y esto en la gran alianza global.
In this big global alliance, we believe that multilateral bodies should be embedded in these articulation processes for government levels and branches in different states. And this will only be possible if we create territory map roads that define the articulation methodology and application for Busan agreements. This will allow us to be more effective and cooperate for development. In addition to this will allow us to generate this agreement and this framework for the post-2015 agenda. So definitely, ladies and gentlemen, what national governments gather, the CPU, the FOGAT, and the regional governments state that we need to implement local alliances that are articulated, that become the foundations or the basis for alliances and global partnerships. Otherwise, no cooperation, no post-2015 agenda will be effective in our territory. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Esta parte de participación de las
This constituency section will continue after the participations of the panelists and the president who is just about to arrive. We will thank you. We would appreciate you staying in your seats while the president comes in. Thank you very much.
Sí. Señoras y señores, queremos suplicarles, sean tan amables.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your cell phones, your portable phones on vibration to avoid any interruption.
That all your mobile devices and cell phones turned into the vibration mode or turn them off, please. Thank you very much.
Damas y caballeros, se encuentran con nosotros el presidente de los Estados Unidos mexicanos, licenciado
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the President Enrique Peña Nieto and the United Nations General Secretary Ban Ki-moon.
Señoras y señores, sientan amables.
Ladies and gentlemen, please have your seats. Thank you.
Presiden la primera reunión de alto nivel de la
In the
Alianza
Presidium
Global para la
for
Cooperación Eficaz al
the
Desarrollo,
first high-level
el presidente de
meeting
los
of the
Estados
Global
Unidos
Partnership for
Mexicanos,
Effective
licenciado
Development
Enrique
Cooperation, we
Peña
have
Nieto.
the President of Mexico and United States, Enrique Peña Nieto.
El secretario general de la Organización de las Naciones
Secretary
Unidas,
General of the United
señor
Nations,
Ban Ki-moon.
Your Excellency, Mr. Ban Ki-moon.
El secretario general de la Organización para la
Secretary
Cooperación y
General
el
for
Desarrollo
the
Económico,
OECD,
Dr. José Ángel Gurría Treviño.
Dr. José Ángel Gurría Treviño.
El secretario de Relaciones Exteriores,
Minister of
Dr.
Foreign
José Antonio
Affairs,
Mid Curibreña.
José Antonio Mid Gurría.
La administradora del Programa de las Naciones Unidas
The administrator
para el
of the
Desarrollo, señora Helen Clark.
PNUD, Helen Clark.
La ministra de Estado para la Planeación
State
Nacional
Minister
y
for National
Desarrollo de
Planning
Indonesia
of
y
Indonesia
copresidente de la
Development
Alianza
and
Global para la
co-chair
Cooperación
of
Eficaz al
the
Desarrollo, excelentísima
first high-level
señora
meeting, the Global
Armida
Partnership
Di
for
Shabana.
Effective Development Cooperation, Armida Di Shabana.
La ministra de Finanzas de Nigeria y
Finance
presidente de la
Minister
Alianza
and
Global para la
Co-President
Cooperación Eficaz
of
al
the
Desarrollo, señora
Global
Ngozi
Partnership for Effective
Okonjo-Iweala.
Development, Mrs. Angashi Ko-Obana.
Y la ministra de Estado para la
State
Planeación
Minister
Nacional
for
y
National
Desarrollo
Planning
del Reino
and
Unido y
Development of the
copresidente de la
UK
Alianza
and
Global para la
co-chair
Cooperación
of
Eficaz al Desarrollo,
Global Partnership for
señora
Effective
Justine
Development
Green.
Cooperation, Justine Green.
Saludamos con el mismo agrado
And we
y damos la
also
bienvenida a esta gran
salute and
representación de la
welcome to this
comunidad
big
internacional
representation of
acreditada
international
ante la ONU
community
y ante la OCDE.
created before the
Damas y
OECD
caballeros,
and
todos
United
ustedes
Nations. Ladies
sean
and gentlemen,
bienvenidos.
all of you, please be welcome.
Enseguida, hará
Next,
uso de la palabra el
we will
secretario de
give the floor
Relaciones Exteriores,
to the
Dr.
Foreign
José
Affairs
Antonio
Minister,
Mid Curibreña.
Dr. José Antonio Mid.
Muy buenos días, señor presidente Enrique Peña Nieto.
Good morning, Mr. President Enrique Peña Nieto. Good morning, friends. Please be welcome, all of you, to this first high-level meeting of Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation. A long time ago, the international community gathered with a clear vision to gather efforts to implement and eradicate poverty, generating better development conditions. It was patent, however, that the inspiration was not enough, and to reach this goal that we had set forth, it was necessary to find journey partners and alliances to meet these millennium goals and make this true. The roots of this alliance go back to the first forum about aid efficiency in Rome in 2003. However, it was in Busan under the leadership of Korea 2 years ago, that we materialized this alliance and made sure that these efforts have the best impact for the society, well-being, and efficient analyst. As Mr. Kenneth John Hillman reminded us in the 60s, that it is people, the common denominator for progress. Joseph Felix, 40 years after that, said that the true purpose of development is to transform lives of people, not only the economy. Today, we are immersed in a definition process for the new agenda for development, aligned with the statements that we have made. We are seeking this agenda to be fully inclusive. Thank you, Mr. President Nieto, for accompanying this reflection space that we consider basic to foster development. The representatives and specialists gathered here especially value your support and your vision for future growth and prosperity in a shared manner. Thanks to all the stakeholders for this global partnership gathered in Mexico, the academia, the civil society, representatives from the government, multilateral organizations. We integrated 5 plenary sessions and 37 workshops, and we believe that this will generate fruits and consolidate the purpose of this partnership, and with coordinated actions targeted to results for inclusive development. Thanks for your attention, and again, welcome to Mexico.
Escucharemos el mensaje del secretario general de la Organización de las Naciones Unidas,
General Secretary of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General.
Your Excellency, Mr. Enrique Peña Nieto, President of Mexico, distinguished ministers, Your Excellency Mr. Angel Gurria, Secretary General of OECD, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, buenos tardes. Estoy muy contento.
I am really happy
nuevamente
to be again in Mexico, our dearest and beautiful Mexico, México lindo y querido.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
I thank His Excellency President Enrique Peña Nieto and the government and people of Mexico for hosting this important meeting. 2.5 years ago, many of us met in Busan, Korea, and expressed a strong collective commitment to work better together to reduce poverty and meet the Millennium Development Goals. Since then, we have made important progress, but we have not done enough. As the 2015 MDG deadline draws near, all of us must do more to deliver on our commitments. And as we shape an inspiring post-2015 development agenda, the international community must be committed to supporting the future goals and targets through a renewed global partnership. Critically, we must ensure the financing to match our ambitions. We will soon return to the efforts that began here in Mexico and Monterrey with a new conference on financing for sustainable development. The Monterrey Consensus and Doha Declaration provide the basis for the financing framework beyond 2015. This framework must be broad, encompassing aid, trade, debt sustainability, and macroeconomic stability. Resources must be mobilized from all sources, national, international, private, and public. For the least developed countries, countries in conflict, and others that are largely bypassed by international financing flows, official development assistance, ODA, will remain vital. ODA can also serve as a catalyst, enabling countries to leverage other sources of finance. I congratulate those donors who are meeting their aid commitment in the face of budgetary pressures. I call on others to show resolve and meet your commitment to the world's poorest. We know that the effectiveness of development aid is just as important as the levels. The results from the monitoring of the Busan commitments underscore the challenge we face. Much greater progress is needed to increase country ownership, accountability, predictability, and flexibility in how aid is provided. We need to redouble our efforts to make inclusive partnerships a core aspect of the Busan Partnership Agenda a reality. I'm encouraged by the steps that recipient developing countries are taking to set clearer development strategies and ensure national ownership through effective coordination systems and greater parliamentary oversight. This contributes to greater transparency and accountability for all development partners. But more needs to be done to tackle corruption, improve regulation, and engage with civil society. We will need to mobilize domestic resources by broadening tax bases, strengthening the tax administration, improving governance of extractive industries, and cracking down on illicit financial flows at both the point of origin and the point of destination. I commend the leadership that Africa has shown on this agenda and urge us all to strengthen these efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, the world has moved on from the traditional donor-recipient relations. South-South cooperation has registered impressive growth that is bringing new knowledge and new perspectives. We have many successful examples of truly global partnerships that are delivering specific results, from Gavi Alliance and Every Woman, Every Child initiative in the health sector to the Sustainable Energy for All initiative. The private sector has become eager to increase its engagement, not just because there are business opportunities, but because they see the value in ethical business and in helping to improve people's lives. Civil society is also an increasingly essential partner in delivering services, monitoring progress, and strengthening accountability. The stage is set for wider, deeper progress. The world is at a turning point in its pursuit of sustainable development. We have the lessons of the MDGs in our hands. We are in the midst of a rich global discussion on our shared future, with a new set of goals taking shape. There is a growing awareness that climate change is not just a threat, but also an opportunity to reorient our economies for the better. The Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation has a crucial contribution to make. I hope to see concrete message and initiatives coming out of this meeting that will strengthen country-level ownership, uphold development cooperation commitments, and inform our discussions at the United Nations. I count on your leadership as we work together to achieve sustainable development and a life of dignity for all. Let us work together to make this world better for all. I thank you for your leadership and commitment. Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Interviene a continuación la ministra de Estado para la Planeación Nacional del Desarrollo de Indonesia y copresidente de la Alianza Global para la Cooperación Eficaz al Desarrollo, excelentísima señora Armida Ali Shabana.
Your Excellency, Mr. Enrique Peña Nieto, President of Mexico, Your Excellency, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, UN Secretary General, OECD Secretary General, Mr. Angel Gurria, UNDP Administrator, Madam Helen Clark, Honorable Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first high-level meeting of the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation. We are all gathered here to shape a new and inclusive development cooperation that promises to accelerate the achievement of the MDGs in the remaining time until 2015 and to deliver effective development results in the post-2015 context. More than a decade after the launch of the Millennium Development Goals, we have collectively met the targets of halving the number of people living in extreme poverty and providing more than 2 billion people with access to improved sources of drinking water. Despite this achievement, more than 1 billion people still live in extreme poverty. We have made great progress in meeting health targets. However, some Asian countries are falling short in low child mortality, low maternal mortality, and low access to sanitation. Meanwhile, countries in Africa are also falling short on goals related to maternal health, universal access to education, and access to sanitation. MDG's progress has been uneven. Disparities remain among regions and between population groups within countries. People in rural areas continue to find themselves at a disadvantage. Moreover, today, we still face the repercussions of the global financial crisis that has left millions unemployed and reduced the amount of development assistance for countries in most need. Only 1 year remains before we hit the Millennium Development Goals deadline of 2015. In the face of all of these challenges, we have the momentum. We have new emerging economic powers. We have new technologies that are reshaping our societies. We must use this to focus and redouble our efforts in meeting these goals. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the United Nations High-Level Panel on the post-2015 development agenda has focused on a new spirit of solidarity, cooperation, and mutual accountability, and that each of the priority areas of the post-2015 development agenda must be supported by dynamic partnerships. This is where we play a critical role. The Global Partnership is a highly inclusive development cooperation forum envisioned to serve as an action-oriented platform, a go-to partnership for 160 countries and 45 international organizations that have endorsed the Busan Outcome Document, including representatives from countries, international organizations, parliaments, civil society, philanthropic organizations, and the private sector. We aim to address complex global challenges in a highly collaborative manner, and we are here today to identify and discuss various tools for effective partnership and to generate tangible results and opportunities for all. Here, we must strengthen the different cooperation modalities. On financing modalities, we must move beyond the traditional North-South cooperation into areas such as expanding the domestic resources mobilization and involving private sector in development. On partnership modalities, we must expand on knowledge sharing, South-South and triangular cooperation, and the roles of middle-income countries. We must use innovative approaches that go beyond traditional donor-recipient aid relations without transferring the burden to developing countries what developed countries have previously committed. We must use knowledge gained from and shared by all development stakeholders. We must work based on the principle of inclusiveness. This is very important work. As the first high-level meeting, this meeting should provide the foundation and the strategic guidance to the next co-chairs, steering committee, and members of the Global Partnership. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I would like to express my sincerest appreciation to the government of Mexico for hosting this very important event and the offices of my fellow co-chairs, as well as the UNDP-OECD Joint Support Team for the excellent work in preparing for this meeting. Thank you very much.
Please have a seat. And now we give the floor to the Finance Minister of Nigeria and co-chair of the Efficient Cooperation, Ms. Gosi Okonjo-Iweala.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Your Excellency, President Enrique Peña
Su Excelencia, Presidente Enrique Peña Nieto, Presidente de la República de México.
Your Excellency, Mr. Angel Gurria, Secretary General of the OECD, my friend Dr. Juan Antonio Meade, Foreign Minister of Mexico, fellow co-chairs, Ms. Helen Clark, UNDP Administration, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, parliamentarians and civil society participants. Let me begin by thanking His Excellency President Peña Nieto and the government of Mexico for hosting us here at this high-level meeting of the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation. The Global Partnership comes at an opportune moment. For many developing countries, the year 2015 will be a watershed moment. It will be a time when they reflect on the progress they made in the current Millennium Development Goals, and also a time for them to reflect on their development targets for 2015 and beyond. I believe that the Global Partnership is a key instrument to deliver on the post-2015 agenda, and in this regard, we are grateful to have Secretary General Ban Ki-moon here with us to support the linkages between the Busan and Mexico agenda and the post-2015 development process. Distinguished delegates, we have come a long way in improving development cooperation since our initial meetings in Monterrey, Paris, Accra, Busan, and now Mexico City. As Africans, we are true supporters of more effective development cooperation. We are also supporters of the shift in language from aid to development cooperation referred to by Zened Badawi in the opening session this morning. We would like to see a true development partnership which is based on principles of mutual trust and accountability and a shared sense of responsibility for the challenges we all face. At the 2011 conference in Busan, we all made broad commitments to improve the timeliness and predictability of development assistance. At Busan, we discussed how to increase transparency how to ensure that developing countries take the lead in development cooperation, and how we can have a greater focus on results. From the discussions on progress since Busan this morning, I'm happy to say that here in Mexico City, we have made progress on the Busan and earlier commitments. More transparency, more untied aid, more country-led programs, and more focus on results. From Africa's perspective, and from the perspective of my own country, Nigeria, we welcome this progress on agreed principles and urge that we continue to translate our words into action. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy that this conference will also focus on the need to improve domestic resource mobilization in developing countries. As you may know, this is a topic championed by Africa and also discussed by policymakers all over the world. I'm honored to have led the discussion on DRM in this partnership. It is truly a topic of interest to all partners in this cooperative and promises to bring innovative solutions to financing the post-2015 MDGs. Let me thank His Excellency the Secretary General for recognizing Africa's leadership in this area. DRM is a good area where external donor assistance can play a smart role by providing aid to strengthen the tax systems of developing countries. Moreover, according to OECD research led by Angel Gurria here, we know that aid, which is invested in improving tax administration in developing countries, has high returns by generating even more resources for recipient countries. Let me also add another problem that hinders effective resource mobilization for developing countries is the scourge of illicit financial flows. This trend of capital flight from developing countries must stop. We must be bold to look reality in its face, to look at both the supply and demand side of this problem, and to combat those who launder money as well as those who hide the money. I hope this conference will work to identify and agree on concrete solutions to this problem. We strongly support South-South and knowledge sharing to be discussed at this meeting, and we also support the middle-income agenda brought by Mexico. We believe it's an important one. Of course, Nigeria is a new middle-income country with a new rebased GDP of $510 billion, being the largest economy in Africa. We welcome this agenda, especially its focus on eradicating poverty, since middle-income countries have 75% of the world's poor. Finally, let me stress the role of the private sector and civil society in achieving our development cooperation objectives. We cannot find adequate financing to create enough jobs unless we partner with the private sector, including our own micro, medium, and small enterprises. Civil society is also essential for service delivery and keeping us transparent in our development efforts. The private sector and civil society must be and are key partners in making the Busan and Mexico City agenda a success and for fostering the role of development cooperation partnerships in post-2015. I conclude by once more thanking our host, President Peña Nieto, and Foreign Minister Juan Antonio Meade and his team, the OECD UNDP Joint Support Team, my own team from Nigeria, for their roles in making this conference happen. Above all, let me say what an absolute delight it has been working with my co-chairs. Thank you so much, and good luck to the incoming co-chairs and steering committee. I look forward to the rest of our discussions. Thank you.
Escucharemos la intervención de la ministra de Estado para la Planeación Nacional del Desarrollo del Reino Unido y copresidente de la Alianza Global para la Cooperación Eficaz al Desarrollo, señora
Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation. Ms. Justine Greening.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, parliamentarians, civil society organisations, Your Excellencies, Secretary General, co-chairs, Mr. President, I'm absolutely delighted to be here today. I'm so grateful to President Enrique Peña Nieto for hosting this important meeting and for all of Mexico's hard work in making it happen Can I also just say what a pleasure and privilege it's been to work with my fellow co-chairs as well on this first leg of the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation. The timing of this first high-level meeting could not be more appropriate. Discussions are going on in New York right now that will set the global agenda for our collective efforts on development for years to come. So much is at stake, and we just simply cannot afford to get this wrong. I'm very proud that the UK is now spending 0.7% of our GNI on international development, keeping our promise to do that. Whilst we see private sector flows ever growing, the reality is that ODA remains an important source of development finance for so many countries, and I urge all states who have made similar commitments to deliver on those in the coming years. But I also believe that a critical ingredient of the post-2015 discussions isn't just about what it should include, but also how we can work together to achieve it. So it needs to be about the how our efforts can be more effective, and we must all share knowledge and challenge each other to get the best results with limited resources. How we can work in genuine partnership. It's not just that we want to work in partnership, we have to work in partnership if we want to see sustainable gains on poverty reduction. Our best chance for success is to work together. A final how is that we have to make sure that our focus is on development. The Global Partnership has brought a timely shift from aid effectiveness to development effectiveness. Poverty is a global challenge that cannot just be addressed by governments. It requires the contribution of many actors, many policy tools, and many financial flows. That's why the Global Partnership's focus on other domestic resource mobilisation is critical, and I'm delighted that the UK is leading the private sector session. The 4 key principles of development effectiveness agreed in Busan are more important now than ever to equip us to tackle post-2015 challenges. The UK has embedded these principles throughout our work, but I think we can go further, and I want to improve how the UK does things working together. Indeed, I hope that is the spirit in which we're all here today. The Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation is a forum that has something truly special, even unique, to offer, through its focus on practical cooperation in developing countries. And over the next 2 days, I hope we can learn from one another, identify new and exciting ideas, which we can then summarise in our unique annex of actions. And we can learn lessons from each other and head home ready to act with the energy and the creativity that we'll need for the post-2015 period. Thank you very much.
Please be so kind to have a seat, and I will give the floor to the United Nations Manager for Development, Helen Clark.
Excellencies, President Peña Nieto of Mexico, Secretary General of the United Nations, Foreign Minister of Mexico, co-chairs of the Global Partnership, Secretary General of the OECD, all ministers and senior officials present, distinguished participants. Mr. President, thank you for hosting us. At the outset of your administration, you committed Mexico to playing a big role in global affairs, and your hosting us here shows your great determination to do that. Thank you to the co-chairs who have led this partnership from Busan to Mexico. It has been a privilege for UNDP to serve on the steering committee and alongside the OECD in the Secretariat. This year's progress report on the Global Partnership suggests that many long-standing efforts to change the way development cooperation is delivered are paying off. But more must be done to transform cooperation practices, ensure country ownership and use of national systems, and ensure transparency and accountability among partners. Inclusiveness was at the very core of the agreement at Busan, and there does indeed appear to be more recognition in many circles of the role of non-state actors. In the UN development system, we will always be advocating for the full inclusion of civil society as independent development actors. In the aftermath of the global crisis, total official development assistance fell for 2 successive years. So it's been a massive boost to morale to see it rise again last year, although of concern to see the proportion dedicated to Africa go down. Meeting existing commitments on the level and quality of ODA must remain a priority. An ambitious new sustainable development agenda is in the making for beyond 2015, and critical to its implementation will be both the quantity and the quality of ODA. In this respect, I believe the global partnership must play a vital role in advocating for meeting ODA commitments, promoting best practice, forming new alliances for development, and strengthening mutual accountability. A great breakthrough at Busan was to place ODA in the broader context of development cooperation and effectiveness, a context which must include trade, investment, domestic resource mobilisation, remittances, and climate finance. In the new development architecture, the role of South-South and triangular cooperation, civil society organisations, the private sector, the major foundations, will continue to grow. That proliferation of actors brings opportunities, but only if it can be navigated. And it is important to support building the capacity of the poorest countries and communities to access opportunities. That reminds us of the catalytic role which ODA can play in supporting the development of national institutions and capacities to leverage all available sources of development finance to reach national development objectives and make progress on the internationally agreed goals. Ours can be the generation which eradicates poverty and turns the tide on inequalities, citizen insecurity, climate change, and other forms of environmental degradation. Achieving those objectives needs the inclusive approaches to which the global partnership has committed. The more effective this partnership is, the greater the progress the world will make on implementing an ambitious post-2015 agenda. That, to me, is why this major meeting in Mexico City matters. Muchas gracias.
Escucharemos enseguida al secretario general de la Organización para la Cooperación y el Desarrollo Económico, Dr. José Ángel Gurría Treviño.
And now we welcome Secretary General Ángel Gurría from OECD.
Mr. President, Secretary General, dear friends, allow me to begin by acknowledging the role of Mexico, of you, Mr. President, and of your foreign minister and all your team here, and also of our three graces of Justine and Ngozi and Armida, who made the partnership come alive. You made it happen. Thank you all very, very much. It is fitting that the meeting is being held in Mexico, which is undertaking the most impressive package of reforms, showing that nations do best when they lead by example, when they get their act together politically, and when they aim for ambitious policies which reflect best practices. Now, important advances have been made in human development. More than 500 million people have risen out of poverty in the last 20 years. But we clearly need to redouble our efforts, especially given our commitments next year to agree to a post-2015 framework, to address climate change, to fight all forms of inequality, and to address the gender issue, the role of women in society. Now, in Busan, we changed gears. We broadened the discussion that was previously focused on aid and aid effectiveness to one that places effective aid within a broader package of policies and that focuses on partnerships that matter for development effectiveness. That was the big change that was achieved in Busan. But beware, beware. We must not use this broader agenda as an excuse to back away from prior commitments of on aid. For some people, aid can make the difference between life and death. Now, at the time of the Busan High-Level Forum, aid volume from members of the OECD's Development Assistance Committee, the DAC, had hit a record high. Then they fell again in the 2 years that followed. Well, I'm particularly pleased that figures released by Eric Solheim of the DAC chair a few days ago, they show that official development assistance rose again by 6.1% in 2013, reaching 135 billion, a record high. So I'm not sure whether there's a correlation here, but I cannot help but wonder whether the imminence of another high-level meeting here in Mexico made this happen. Maybe we should meet more often, you know, in order to get these flows of aid to actually come. But the numbers hide the fact that there's a drop to the more vulnerable, as Helen just reminded us. This is very, very critical. And we should not lose track of the components of the integration of these numbers, which look good altogether. And welcome, Justine, for the announcement. Precisely when everybody's saying you're going to reduce their support to development, UK steps up and says, you know, even with tight budgets, we're going to increase our development. So congratulations. Now, in Busan, many of you volunteered to participate in a global monitoring exercise. The UNDP and the OECD have supported that monitoring exercise. And we released a final report 2 weeks ago, and it shows that the pace of change has been far too slow, particularly when it comes to some of the commitments made by donors in Paris, in Accra, in Busan. Now, let me also remind you what we said in Accra. We asked, how do you spell aid? And we said T-A-X, okay? And that has to do not with the fact that we want to lessen the emphasis on aid, in fact we want to increase it, but also that domestic resource mobilization is of the greatest importance. And let me briefly comment here on ways in which how we can help countries to increase their own institutional capacities so that they can mobilize domestic resources. And some of the examples. In the case of Rwanda, there was a modest contribution from donors to increase their capacities to increase domestic revenues, and they increased from 9 to 15% of GDP, their revenues. In Colombia and Kenya, we had several examples, and Minister Bishop of Australia just told us of the example in the Solomon Islands, which was supported by Australia, precisely to form capacities, and they have multiplied by 15 the revenue that they get so that the government can do its programs. So there's massive promise in this kind of support, in this kind of aid. Now, we are accelerating, we're deepening our efforts in the international tax system. You are all familiar with the Nowhere to Hide campaign, so that every individual anywhere in the world will pay fully their taxes, but also of our campaign to make sure the multinationals pay fully their taxes, in our initiative called Tax Inspectors Without Borders, which is precisely to empower and allow the more vulnerable countries to have the institutional capacity to be able to help itself out. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, we're talking here about designing a new multilateralism for development, one built on the spirit of solidarity enshrined in the Millennium Declaration, one that needs to break down bureaucratic barriers, and one that needs to be truly a multi-stakeholder exercise, one that needs to encourage leaders to come to the table in a race to the top for development. Now, we just had a declaration by the philanthropists, the guidelines for effective philanthropy. They are engaging with us, and that would not have happened had this meeting been imminent. And the same with trade unions, the same with the private sector, the same, of course, with governments, etc. We are working hand in hand with the UNDP, Helen Clark, Secretary General, hand in hand with every single United Nations agency to support the global partnership. We're responding to a call from 161 countries, 56 organizations, and more as we speak almost that are joining, to make sure that the Millennium Development Goals and their successors are implemented, and that poverty becomes a scourge of the past. I'm encouraged, Secretary General Ban, by your personal, strong commitment to this partnership. Count on us. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you to use the next 2 days to show how all of this can be done in practice. It is possible. It is within reach. To turn commitments into action, and above all, to come closer to fighting poverty, to reducing inequality, to address environmental sustainability. In short, better policies for better lives. Thank you.
Señoras y señores, escuchemos el mensaje del presidente de los Estados Unidos mexicanos, licenciado Enrique Peña Nieto, al término del cual realizará la declaratoria inaugural de esta primera reunión de alto nivel de la Alianza Global para la Cooperación al Desarrollo.
Señoras y señores, muy buenas tardes a todos
and gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you.
Señor Secretario General de la Organización de las Naciones Unidas,
Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, please be welcome to our country. It is our pleasure to have your presence in this so important event, which is of major relevance for international cooperation of all the countries that are represented hereby. I would like to salute with all my warmth the ministers of Indonesia, Nigeria, and the United Kingdom, co-chairs of this Global Partnership for Effective Development. I also want to salute Helen Clark, Administrator of the United Nations Development Program, and also the OECD Secretary General and distinguished guests, leaders of international organizations that are present here in this event, members of the cabinet of the government of the Republic of this country, and also the head of government, the mayor of the Federal District. Thank you very much for being here. Also governors of the state of Puebla, and also legislators that chair commissions related to international affairs in our country. Different authorities of the federal or state branches also who participate in this effort, also political delegations, municipalities. All of you gathered to add up our solidarity and efforts for this cooperation to build a better world. I salute ambassadors from different brother and sister countries that are present here, and all our participants representing international organizations, country, civil society organizations, also trade unions from all over the world who are gathered in this first high-level meeting organized in Mexico precisely for a global partnership for effective development cooperation for the world that we all dream of. Ladies and gentlemen, media, representatives from the civil society, for Mexicans, it is a big honor to be the hosts for this first high-level meeting of the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation. On behalf of the people of Mexico, I give you the warmest welcome to our country. We are really proud to receive representatives from more than 130 nations who in 2 days will debate, will reflect on a global importance topic, which is the development of those that live in vulnerable conditions. Today, a country that has assumed international cooperation opens its doors as a ruling principle included in the Mexican United States Constitution. Mexico, it's a solidary and generous country that has made economic cooperation and human aid and shared effort for a better world a clear testimony of its global responsibility. We are a country who has created its own international cooperation agency for development, convinced that we can help to reduce poverty and also inequality gaps that divide the inhabitants of the planet. In the era of globalization, the development of a country fosters the development of all the humanity. In this high-level meeting, we have representatives of the government and also non-government stakeholders to increase the efficiency of cooperation policies. That is, attain that international aid contributes truly to eradicate hunger and extreme poverty, avoiding that children die from preventable illnesses, and making sure that women have the same opportunities that men, among other goals. And also the globalization of economy, we need to continue with the globalization of solidarity. This shared conviction, shared by all the countries that are represented here, has its origin of the Millennium Statement, where we set forth the goals to foster a global alliance for development. Since then, we have organized several fora and multilateral meetings to make financing viable for development and making more efficient cooperation policies. It was at one of those recent meetings in Busan, South Korea, late in 2013, where we had this global alliance for efficient cooperation for development that gathers us together. I celebrate that this high first-level meeting, it's made in a moment of big definitions. In a year where, within a year where we have our deadline for the Millennium Goals, I am sure that this new global alliance for having a decisive role in the definition of the development agenda that we have to follow for 2015, post-2015. I want to acknowledge Mr. Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General of the United Nations, for his leadership in leading international efforts to implement this strategic agenda.
Lograr que toda persona en el mundo tenga una vida digna es una causa que nos convoca y nos compromete a todos, en una razón que nos mueve a la unidad, pero sobre todo a la acción.
To action. In recent years, new change agents have emerged, decided to contribute to the solution of social challenges that we face. To northern donor countries, different donors from south have joined, local governments and parliaments, as well as civil society organizations, foundations, private enterprises, and the most valuable, millions of voluntary citizens. Here in Mexico City, we do have the opportunity of adding efforts and moving forward together towards a new era of efficient cooperation, which will allow us to achieve inclusive development as well as sustainable development that we want for our world. We have the possibility of building the new architecture of international cooperation necessary to concrete, in fact, post-2015 development agenda. In order to achieve social transformation desired by all of us at a global level, we need to mobilize collective power of each nation. Hand in hand with its global responsibility, Mexico has decided to propose, assume, and totally comply with its international commitments in terms of development. Based on this conviction, we work in 3 different action fronts. First, to institutionalize the basic principles on effective development cooperation, that is, alignment of international aid together with priorities of receiving countries, actions oriented towards results, transparency and accountability, and the establishment of associations for an inclusive development. Mexico does count on a great progress in terms of legal and institutional actions in order to ensure that these principles will be reflected in international cooperation actions and in the proper execution of resources aimed at development. Precisely, some of the reforms we have adopted do cover constitutional autonomy of the entity responsible for governmental transparency and the evaluation entity for social development policies. Our second action axis, to broaden and improve international aid quality. As a nation that receives and offers international cooperation, we do know demands of recipient countries as well as the responsibilities of donors. As a country which a high middle-income country, Mexico has strengthened cooperation with southern nations in terms such as agriculture, education, energy, health, and security. Besides providing economic aid to support infrastructure projects in Central America and the Caribbean, Mexico offers technical cooperation and scientific cooperation to the world in different areas. We do believe in knowledge transfer as well as technology transfer and the best practices. This is vital to speed up the development of all nations. We do also know that not all the countries do count on economic resources so as to support other nations. However, though all countries do count with experiences and successful cases and public policies that may share beyond their borders. In Mexico, we are organizing all the information regarding policies and strategies on development in order to offer it to the whole world. Based on this purpose, I have instructed all the members of the government of the country to support the work on the Development International Cooperation Mexican agencies, which is in charge of all these projects. The main objective is to achieve in the short term that Mexico's experience is available in a digital platform for all the members of our partnership. And finally, our third action axis, to promote the adoption of a global initiative for inclusion. This is precisely Mexico's proposal for the development agenda post-2015. We must define meaningful goals in the different dimensions of development, including nourishment, education, income, health, social security, and basic services for housing. In order to reach a truly inclusive global society, it is necessary to redouble efforts against inequality. In a world in which the greatest wealth is diversity, we must make sure that nobody is excluded. Ladies and gentlemen, Mexico is committed to the global partnership for effective development cooperation and with the agenda that will be defined here. I fully trust that this high-level meeting will lead towards initiatives and projects which will allow to speed up the development of all the peoples of the world. If we do align our priorities and we do articulate our efforts, we shall send a very clear message of solidarity and hope to those who do live under a poverty and marginalization situation. Let us unite ourselves in order to make progress, because united we may comply with the promise of a better future for all humankind. Thank you very much.
Si me permiten, voy a proceder a la declaratoria de inauguración de este encuentro, que sé, no obstante, es ahora que se formaliza dicha inauguración.
Now that we make formal this opening, I know that you have already started with your works and the work that you will pursue on these 2 days. I reiterate my welcome to all members, participants, attendants of this first high-level meeting of the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation, especially for the most vulnerable countries. And I congratulate the 3 co-chairs that have worked in a close and decisive manner to share experiences, but especially to project from this space what should be done to have a better world based on best public policies and, moreover, seeding solidarity spirit among all brothers countries of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, certain that this meeting will contribute to build a more inclusive and prosperous country. Today, April the 15th, 2014, I will declare formally opened the first high-level meeting of Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation. I wish you the best of success and that you contribute to the construction of a more inclusive world and country, as all the world needs that. Thank you very much and congratulations.
De esta manera, damas y caballeros, hemos concluido este evento. Se despide de ustedes el presidente de los Estados Unidos mexicanos, licenciado Enrique Peña Nieto, y el secretario general de la Organización de las Naciones Unidas, excelentísimo señor Ban Ki-moon. Rogamos a la amable asistencia permanecer en sus lugares. Muchas gracias por su atención.
Thank you for your attention.